Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, director. That's a quote that really does sum up my thoughts on Rogue One: A Star Wars Story rather nicely. As you can see by the title of this video, welcome to a review and rant on Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, which I like to call Routine One: A Star Wars Story, because it is an unbelievably routine, been there, done that story, and it is a total bore. It is so boring. It is boring as sin. There's a few action sequences, a couple of them are decent, but for the most part, the film is about 80-85%, maybe even 90% dialogue and establishing shots. And there really isn't a lot of action in this film. Well, at least it doesn't seem like it. Maybe there is a lot of action, but it just doesn't seem like there's any stakes, because the film does not bother to write characters that are engaging, let alone memorable. Characters that you want to go along with for the ride. At least for me personally. And before I get into the review and the rants, I want to say this. If you like the film, if you love the movie, I think that's great. I think that's awesome, because that shows me that we still live in a very interesting world and an interesting place to be a part of, where people have different opinions. And if you can enjoy a film and find a film entertaining that I didn't, more power to you. But this is just my personal opinion, and I'm not attacking anyone. I'm not personally attacking anyone who likes this film. I just was not a fan of this movie. I didn't hate it, because there were some things about it that I did like. Honestly, this was a bit better than I thought it was going to be, but it still had a lot of the same faults and a lot of the same problems that I thought it was going to have. And that's a lack of engaging, charismatic characters, a pretty bland, boring story, and yeah, that's pretty much what happened with this film. This film reminded me, in terms of my reaction to it, of Suicide Squad. Same kind of reaction. Had some great characters. Other characters weren't so great. Had some decent bits of action. There were some performances that I liked. Some of the music. But overall, it just was disappointing, because there was a lot of potential to be had here, but it's wasted with a lame story and characters that, yeah, honestly, Suicide Squad had better characters. Uh, Harley Quinn alone is a better character than anyone in this film. This film has a whole eclectic cast of characters, and if you combine them together all into one character, that wouldn't even come out to be a good character. That's how bad the characterization is in this story, in this film. Now, at least how bad I thought it was. So, I know I'd said in multiple videos before this, like, I'm not going to see it, don't expect a review, but my stepdad and my mom wanted to see it, and so I saw it, because family time is very important to me, and it doesn't matter if it's a movie that I really don't have a desire to see, like this film, because it's telling a story I didn't care about, and I still don't care about, and mainly because the trailers just, I just did not like what I saw in the trailers. It looked like the fun that this franchise was built on, the B-movie sensibilities, the just turn your brain off entertainment that Star Wars represents. It looked like that was missing here. And after seeing the film, it was. There's a friend of mine who said a statement which I think is very poignant and really sums up this film really well as the quote that I opened this review up with. And that is, he said that Rogue One: A Star Wars Story was a beautiful looking piece of shit. It was a beautiful piece of shit. He's right. It's a beautiful piece of shit. Now, it's not the biggest pile of shit, but it's still, yeah, it's still a beautiful piece of shit, because there are some really great things about this film. It's just a shame that the rest of the film isn't up to par with everything else. So, yeah. So I saw it, and I'm glad that I saw it, because some visuals were really nice to see on the big screen. And I was glad I saw it too, because I got to spend quality time with my family. Now, Rogue One is directed by Gareth Edwards. He's a director that I'm iffy on. This is a guy who I can see his talent. I can see his talent on the screen. This guy knows how to direct. He knows how to set up his shots. He knows how to get the most out of some visuals. But that seems like all he's able to do. Because I have not seen a single film that he's done lately that shows me that this guy is really capable of being able to elevate either a mediocre story or a mediocre script, or be able to bring characters to life in a way that is memorable and something that really raises the stakes and creates suspense and creates intrigue and creates thrills. Because that seems to be a theme with a lot of his films. With Godzilla, which I like to call Goddamnzilla because it was a goddamn disappointment. Other than Bryan Cranston's character who dies 30 minutes in the movie, you have these really stock cardboard cutout characters that you do not care about whether they live or die. And the same thing applies here. All these heroes, they're going on a suicide mission, and you barely know anything about these characters. And even that isn't even really that big of a deal. If they had a character, if they were charismatic, if these were characters that had a fun personality to them, if they had more than something, because the two leads we have about as much chemistry and charisma as a pumice stone, or they're two dry sponges trying to interact with each other. It is just absolutely pathetic. So, considering when you compare it to the characters that you see in Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, I'm supposed to believe this is part of the same timeline as Star Wars? I don't buy it, because this film is so dourly serious that it might as well be Hacksaw Ridge, the Star Wars edition, or The Thin Red Line. And I'm like, this has no business being in a Star Wars film. I understand it has war in the title. That doesn't mean we need to get all super serious and gritty with it. I understand people are like, oh, well, it's different. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's good. And it's not unique, especially nowadays, because there are so many films that are dark and gritty. Because of the whole Christopher Nolan fan, the whole craze with the Christopher Nolan films. There's a lot of films that are like that. And what separated Star Wars from a lot of other franchises is that it wasn't dark and gritty. It was fun. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why the first film was so successful. Because back in the 70s, there were a lot of dark, just really depressing movies that came out in theaters back then. And Star Wars is like a fun throwback to the old Saturday morning, morning, and serials that people would go to see in theaters, like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. Just to kind of turn your brain off, enjoy it, have some fun type of movie. And this is just going in a direction that I do not think the franchise should go. Like, this is trying to out-grit and out-dark The Empire Strikes Back. After this movie is over, you feel depressed. You feel suicidal. You should not feel that way after watching a Star Wars film. At least not in my opinion. So, yeah, Gareth Edwards, he's a talented director. He knows what he's doing. But, man, does he need to, I don't know, pick better projects or pick some project with some better screenplays. Because it really hurts him, at least in my opinion. Because I haven't seen a film of his that I liked yet. So, the script by Chris Weitz and Tony Gilroy is, I think it's honestly pretty terrible. I think it's a pretty terrible script. You have two writers here, and you have two writers who do not know how to write action, who either don't know how to write characters who are likable and have a personality, because none of that is in here in this film. And it's frustrating, because you have, okay, maybe if these cast of characters were fun and they were closer to something like you'd see in Guardians of the Galaxy, then maybe this would be a movie that I would have personally enjoyed and had fun with. But this is just so fucking boring and dull and just hard to sit through for these, because it's just, There's not much fun to be had here, and even the moments where there are levity, it's just rehashes of other characters. The robot, that's just C-3PO. That's just a less scared C-3PO. That's all the robot is in this movie. He even says the line, "Oh, I got a bad feeling about this." It's the same. It's the same thing. It's the same character. It's just not as scared. The You have an Asian guy, Donnie Yen, who's just a martial arts guy who can like fight, and he's blind. So he's the blind kung fu master from Mad TV, played by Bobby Lee, but in a more serious fashion. I mean, this screenplay is a huge problem for this film because it kills the pacing, because it jumps all over the place from planet to planet trying to introduce these characters. It doesn't do a very good job introducing these characters, or it doesn't. It just introduces them. It doesn't even bother trying to make you like these characters. You have Jyn Erso, who's supposed to be this lead of the film, and she's not really a lead, and doesn't even start to rebel or join the rebellion until 45 minutes into the film. So the focus on her goes all over the place. This film is complete. The screenplay is unfocused. It needed a rewrite. It needed somebody to come in and do something with it. Because as it is, it was not good enough. And these were the same guys who brought us Cinderella, Disney Cinderella, and the like most of the Bourne Identity films, and Nutty Professor 2, Meet the Clumps. And from the director of Twilight New Moon. Yeah, that's the best writers you could definitely get for a new Star Wars spinoff. It's those people who have never really written science fiction or written fantasy. I'm not including Twilight, but because this is not very much. There's not a lot of fantasy about that. It's a fantasy that series is any good, but really, it's like this script just sucked out all the fun out of Star Wars. Like, there's bits and pieces here, but it's just an afterthought. And it's sad. Because this is Star Wars we're talking about. I know it's different, but just because it's different doesn't mean it's good. Just because it's different does not mean that it was warranted, at least to me. I had no desire to see a darker, grittier, more realistic Star Wars film. I had no desire to see a Star Wars film that had mostly dialogue instead of action sequences or fun back and forth between the characters. And especially I didn't want to have a desire to see a Star Wars film. We have two leads who are just black holes of suck. Felicity Jones, as Jyn Erso, she has a blank expression on her face throughout the whole movie. Any type of emotion she does show or attempt to show, it doesn't register to me as a human emotion. She's just flat, completely flat. Just a lot of the time she just stands around like this, with a blank look on her face. The robot had more personality than she did. And it's a fucking robot. Diego Luna as Cassian Andor. He's a wannabe Han Solo, and he cannot hold Harrison Ford's jock. He's not a great actor either. Like, his line delivery was just stilted. And I don't even know if any actor or actress could have made these characters stand out, because the script is so shitty. What are they going to do? Like, you could have the most charismatic and entertaining couple, actor and actress imaginable for this role, for these roles, and they would not be able to bring these characters to life unless they were able to improvise, because what they have to work with here is shit. It's jack and shit. It's a terrible script with just terrible lines of dialogue for these characters. There's no interaction. They have no chemistry with one another. They're not fun to watch. So why do these characters have so much screen time? Because they're just the designated main characters, apparently, for this film. You're just wanting Darth Vader to show up and kill them all halfway through the film. That's not how I should be feeling when I'm watching this movie, where a lot of the emphasis and a lot of the selling power is these characters, these new heroes, in this adventure you've never seen before. But then it seems very generic, and I've seen it before in other Star Wars movies. So you also have Ben Mendelsohn, who plays Orson Krennic, and I thought he did a great job. That's one character I thought, and one actor who I thought was great. He was having fun as the bad guy. I was having fun watching him. I wish he was in the film more. I wish he did more. Donnie Yen, who's a blind warrior, it was fun to see him fuck up some stormtroopers. That's really all he was. He was a blind Asian guy, Jedi. Never used a lightsaber. Never did anything like that. Alan Tudyk is K2SO. Like I said, it's just C-3PO with a different name, and he's not as scared. And he's able to use a gun and fend for himself. But a lot of the same shtick is there. Don't tell me the odds. Always talking about the odds for things. It's like, if I want to see that from a robot, I'll just watch a movie. I'll just watch Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. 3 films that are way better than this. I'll just watch movies of C-3PO if I want that kind of interaction. Riz Ahmed plays Bodhi Rook, who he's a former cargo pilot for the Empire who defects to the rebels. And that guy is just absolutely in one ear, out the other. Who gives a shit about that guy? He has no personality. They don't even try to give him one. And he's supposed to go mad after this weird slug thing went in his ears and like messed him up, try to get information. But he just, all of a sudden, somebody says, "Are you the pilot?" And then he suddenly is sane now for the rest of the movie. No madness whatsoever. I guess the madness was just in the script as well. There's a throwaway line, and the madness goes away when the story decides it should go away. Just for convenience sake. That's how bad the screenplay is. There's such a huge oversight like that. It's like, oh, it'll drive you mad. But then, I guess not. Apparently not. The screenplay drives me mad. Because admittedly, even though I wasn't that interested in a prequel about before A New Hope, before Star Wars, because I don't like calling it A New Hope, it's Star Wars. Does the poster say A New Hope? No, it says Star Wars. So, I wasn't that interested in the idea of these, the rebels who went in and got the Death Star plans. But there might have been something fun there. Kind of like how I felt about Prometheus. There might have been a good idea, it's an interesting thing. But, just like that film, a poor screenplay just fucks everything up. Forrest Whitaker is also in this as Saw Gerrera. And, oh my God, what was he doing? What was that performance? Was he high? What was wrong with him? Like, how can any director look at this performance and be like, yeah, that's good. That's a good performance. That's something that should absolutely be in the film. That's something we should ask people to pay money to see. He was just going up in octaves all over the place. It was like he was going through puberty or some shit. It was embarrassing. It was about as embarrassing as the performance by Nick Cage in Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. That made me cringe in my seat. And so did this. It's an awful performance. I know he can do better than that. And you also have Mads Mikkelsen as Galen Erso, who's the father of Jin, and he's a research scientist. It's basically a throw. It's just, he's the father, and he has like a few scenes. Doesn't leave much of an impact. Even when he died, I was like, oh, that sucks, I guess. So, yeah. A lot of the actors, they had nothing to work with. The villain, he did the best he can. Krennic, Ben Mendelsohn, he did the best that he could. He was the most memorable villain out of this, other than the CGI Peter Cushing, CGI Grand Moff Tarkin, and Vader, who's only in it for a bit. There's a scene where he shows up, says that line that I used to open up this review. Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, director. And And that scene was weird because for some reason Vader was living in a volcano. And I understand what they were doing. It was based on some artwork that Ralph McQuarrie did while he was working on spec artwork for Star Wars. But it just doesn't fit because Anakin, Vader, he lost half his body. He basically had most of his body parts burned off in a volcano, pretty much, by magma. Why the hell would he want to live in a volcano? I'm just saying, that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, the very thing that forced me to become more machine than man, yeah, I want to live in a fucking volcano. And it looked like something out of Lord of the Rings. It just did not really fit with the Star Wars universe for me personally. It looked out of place. It's a nitpick, I know, but it's definitely something that I thought, and definitely just something that did kind of bug me a bit. And plus, the look of Vader, they fucked up. Like, how can you fuck up Vader? I know it's a nitpick, but this is Vader we're talking about here. How do you not put the chain around his neck? How do you not? How do you not do this? After how? How do you fuck up that kind of thing? I'm just saying. How do you fuck up the design of Vader? How do you miss something? I thought that was impossible, but apparently not. So yeah. Now, I'm not going to go into really in depth on the plot. That's not what this point of this video is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and tell you guys about the things that I did like about the movie. So I'm going to talk about the good, and then I'm going to talk about the bad, and then I am going to give you my final thoughts on the film. Now, let's start, like I said, let's start with the good. Because there's plenty of time for bad, and I've already kind of ranted stuff on the film already. So let's talk about some things about it that I did like. For one, I thought Gareth Edwards did a good job directing the film. He just had a shitty screenplay to work with. The screenplay just was not that good. So it needed a rewrite. It needed some punch. It needed something to punch it. There needed to be some punch to it. It just was very lackadaisical, meandering. It needed some kind of energy. And it didn't get that. And Gareth Edwards is not the type of director, from what I've seen, who is capable of injecting that kind of energy into the script. But the directing is fine. It's not a problem. I didn't even have a problem with his directing on Godzilla. If I said I did, you know, I got to take that back because the directing is actually not one of the film's problems. The film's problem is the screenplay, and I think he helped write it, though. So, you know, he might have been at fault for some things with the film. And he also probably was the one who wanted to tease Godzilla multiple times. And thankfully that didn't happen in this. They didn't do that. But, yeah, I mean, directing, there's some really just jaw-dropping visuals. And it's a visually stunning film. So I gotta give props to that. The visuals alone. The special effects by Industrial Light and Magic. The mixes of CGI and practical effects. I definitely did enjoy, and I did like seeing on the screen. It just, after a while, though, I was like, okay, is that it? Do I have characters to go along with these amazing effects? Do I have a story that's engaging and interesting to go along with all of this? No? I just have, like, amazing visuals? Okay, you know, I'm sorry. Amazing visuals isn't enough. I need a story. I need characters to go along with that. Amazing visuals is not enough alone to make me like a film. So it doesn't matter how amazing the visuals are. And also with the effects, they better look good. This movie cost $200 million. Cinematography by Greg Fraser. Superb. Spectacular. I mean, there's certain shots like in the desert and other places that are just, like I said, they're jaw-dropping. They're amazing. I mean, the cinematographer is trying to bring the most he can out of this film and just make it a visual splendor, and it is. But it's the movie's still a piece of shit. You can put diamonds in a piece of shit, you can do all this, but it's still a piece of shit. It's a piece of shit with some diamonds in it. The editing by John Gilroy, Colin Goody, and Jabez Olson. Solid. They did a good job. They did their jobs well. The score by Michael Giacchino was surprising. Now, at times, it was kind of just trying to be as close to Star Wars, close to John Williams' music as possible, but without blatantly copying it. But there still was enough there where there's enough changes where it didn't feel exactly the same. And it actually was able to capture the spirit of the original trilogy. And I actually thought it was better than the music that John Williams made for The Force Awakens. So that was a bright spot. And in terms of performances, like I said, I didn't mind Donnie Yen. I wish he was in the film more, and I wish he had more to do. In fact, I would have watched a film just centered around him and his partner. I would have watched a movie about those two. They had the most chemistry out of anyone in this film. So yeah, I totally would have watched those two. And Donnie Yen has a line where he's trying to be funny. He's trying to add some kind of fun to it. Where he's like, I'm blind, not deaf. So he's like trying to add some fun to it, but it's just, the film just doesn't allow that to really register that much, because there's just so much dialogue and so much exposition and so much shit. The movie doesn't just stop and like enjoy itself. It takes things way too seriously. It's like Young Guns 2, but without the fun moments. Like the best $1.80 I ever spent. Or you'd be sentenced to be hanged, where you're gonna go to hell. And so yeah, I think it was like, you can go to hell. You'd be sentenced to be hanged, where you would be dead. Well, you could go to hell. I mean, really, when I'm comparing, I'd rather talk about Young Guns 2. Like, that's how bad this film was for me. I'd rather talk about a movie that isn't even that good to begin with over this movie. So, but yeah, Donnie Yen was fine. I like I said, I love Ben Mendelsohn. I want to see him do more. I'm really curious to see him in other films after seeing him in this role. He just was probably one of the stronger and one of the best villains I've seen. I liked him more. I thought he was more intimidating and better than Kylo Ren. Absolutely, 100%. Director Rennick, better villain than Kylo Ren. Not even close, if you ask me. So, yeah, so that was a real diamond in the rough right there. And I did like the little references to other film, the trilogy, where you had little cameo roles, a little, you get to see some things like the probe droid you saw in Empire Strikes Back. You see a Wampa. You see these other little sort of things in the background, which, kind of, oh, remember this type thing, but it wasn't like so in the forefront that it became distracting. I did like that a lot. The practical makeup effects when they were there were well done. And I did like some of the action sequences, the stuff where Donnie Yen is fighting stormtroopers. I liked some of the action bits on Gareth in the climax. The stuff with the Imperial walkers on the sand. And I absolutely loved the Vader scene that I think apparently was added last minute. Where Vader shows up, and this is before the opening of Star Wars, and he shows up and just starts fucking up rebel soldiers right and left with the Force, and choking them and throwing them around and beating their ass and fucking them up with lightsabers with a lightsaber. It was epic. Like that was like the best thing about the movie. Was the Vader scene, just fucking up all these rebel soldiers right and left. I was like, where's the Vader movie? I want to see the Darth Vader movie now. I want to see the movie about Darth Vader just fucking up people. Every which way but loose, just all over the fucking place. I'm gonna force choke you. I'm gonna fuck you up with a lightsaber. And totally. That just made me want to see a Vader film. So, yeah, I mean, it was worth a watch for that, but you could probably watch that scene by itself. Not like it has any real context with the story of this movie. But yeah, Vader scene was awesome. So, those are the things that I liked about the movie. Like I said, it wasn't the worst thing ever. I didn't hate the film. I just didn't care for it. But there were some things that I did like. Those were the things that I liked. Now let's talk about the things I didn't like. Pacing. Unbelievably slow. It's about as slow as an Imperial Walker walking through quicksand. In a lot of ways, it's because it just doesn't have a very good opening. It has an opening that just reminds you of like Star Wars and stuff with Luke, and instead, it's just very deja vu. Oh, this young kid, and it kind of reminds me of Rey as well. So it's just very kind of, it wasn't exactly the same, but it was similar enough that it just didn't really, just felt very samey. Uh, and it's just, there's not a lot of action in the first 45 minutes or so. Like, there's a brief spurts here and there, but they're not memorable in the slightest. That's one of the big problems that these new Star Wars films have had, if you ask me. Just completely unmemorable, forgettable action sequences. That just, can you remember? I can't remember any. I can't remember any action sequences the first 45 minutes or so, 50 minutes of this over 2 hour long film, which is way too long. Way too long. This movie should not have been 133 minutes. That's over 2 hours. And it really drags. It drags so much. Especially after it basically starts slow. And then it doesn't really pick up pace. Like, there'll be time where it might be picking up a little bit of pace. It might be getting, okay, all right, we're getting somewhere. And then the action sequence is like, maybe like 2 minutes tops, and then it's back to talking and bureaucratic bullshit and more blabbing and talking by the Empire, and scenes with a CGI Moff Tarkin, and I'm just like, oh my, just fucking get to some action sequences or something, or have some fun. Gotta have some fun dialogue. Oh, all I get is the robot being a half-ass C-3PO. Thanks. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm want. That's definitely what I'm asking for. And even if I judge this on its own merits, it sucks. It's just bland. It's milquetoast. It's like a saltine cracker that doesn't have any salt on it. It's just a completely salt-free, saltless saltine cracker. So, yeah, pacing really needed a trim. It needed some of the dialogue to be trimmed down. It needed longer, more extended action sequences. It needed peppier dialogue. It needed something, because as it just is a slog. It's a total slog to sit through. And in a lot of ways, it's the energy. It's sapped of energy. It's sapped of fun. I don't understand how. I don't understand the people saying that, oh, it recaptures the spirit of the original. I don't get it, because I don't see that on display here at all. At all. Not at all. Because it's not fun to watch. There were times where I was looking up at the ceiling tiles again. I was counting ceiling tiles in the movie theater. Because it was another extended, long-ass scene of them doing nothing. Just Jin and Cassian just talking and talking. Just like, stop talking. Just shut up. You know, sometimes it's better if you just shut up for a sec and just, show me, don't tell me. That's one of the problems I definitely do have with the popularity of this Christopher Nolan style filmmaking, is you Nolanize things, and by doing that, you make things too serious, too gritty, and it's just mostly dialogue. And it just becomes very boring. You can tell a story, you can create emotions, you can do things by showing me, not telling me. And it almost also feels like the movie's holding the audience's hand, too. Like, it's like, oh, we have all this dialogue because it's such a complex story. And I'm like, is it really? Is it really? Why were you taking 45, 50 minutes to build up to the whole, oh, she's finally going to become a member of the Rogue team, and then she's going to help them get the Death Star plans? Why the hell is this taking that long to develop this? Because, oh, character development? What character development? Only character development anyone has is Jin. Nobody else has any character development. They're there, they're part of the rogue group. That's it. That's all she wrote. They don't have a personality either to make up for it. For the film's lack of character development for these characters. So that's probably the main issue that this film has when it comes to the pacing. Because these characters suck. Who gives a shit? And then they have this sacrifice at the end, which then just makes it even more of a tough sit. If you try to watch it a second time around, at least for me personally, why the hell would I want to watch this? Everybody dies in the end. Yeah, woo! Everybody dies. There isn't even one person, one survivor. I understand in Star Wars, there was a line of dialogue that said, oh, there was a great sacrifice that happened, that occurred to get these plans. Great sacrifice does not mean everybody died. It could be a lot of people died. These faceless soldiers who just show up. They look like a bunch of soldiers from some generic war movie. You don't know who the fuck they are. They're just rebel soldiers who I guess sacrificed their lives as cannon fodder. It doesn't help either. The stormtroopers look even more incompetent than ever in this. Their armor doesn't do shit. They're getting their asses kicked by an Asian blind man. They can't seem to shoot worth a shit. They can't aim. It's to the point where it's like, maybe, especially if you're trying to inject realism into this Star Wars film, maybe you should make the stormtroopers a more formidable opponent. You think? You think? I'm just saying. I understand that's part of the film's legacy and the franchise, but I didn't even really care for that. I mean, as it went on, I was like, can we honestly have the stormtroopers actually pose some sort of threat? Because it just gets kind of old after a while when they're just fucking useless. Because then it just makes you think, like, what is the point of them even being in the film other than just fan service? So, yeah, I mean, the action sequences suffer too, because they're just, okay, stormtroopers. I guess some of the other faceless soldiers died. Ooh. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Who the fuck gives a shit? And yeah, the ending. Where it pretty much went exactly where I thought it was going to go. I was like, they're going to crash this ship. They're going to crash one of the Star Destroyers into the shield, which reminded me of Spaceballs. Like, what are they going to ask for the password? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? That's amazing! That's the same combination on my luggage! Man, I just want to watch Spaceballs. That's fun! That's a fun movie! That's a spoof of Star Wars, and that recaptures the spirit of Star Wars better than this Star Wars movie does. That's just, I should not be saying that. So, yeah, it goes where I think it's going to go. Characters die in these supposedly heart-wrenching ways, but I'm like, these characters suck to begin with, so who cares? Jin has her confrontation with the guy who pretty much, Krennic, who pretty much led to her father's death, and she isn't even the one that kills him. It's Cassian, wannabe Han Solo, who shows up out of nowhere and shoots him. I'm like, how and when did he earn that? The film's marketed as she's the lead, and she doesn't do anything. She barely does anything in this film. I can't even think of very much that she did do. She had a scene where she had a cliched speech to the rebels who were leery about going on this mission to get the Death Star plans, and that scene was just unnecessary. It's like this political bullshit that reminds me of the prequels. Yeah, I need more of that. I need more Senate hearings and shit. Remind me of that garbage. Thank you. That was a great idea. And I'm just like, I didn't need that cliched shit. And I understand sometimes with some cliches, I don't mind them. And I don't mind them, especially when I enjoy the film. But I didn't like this film, so some of the cliches just stood out in the wrong way, like a sore thumb. And that was definitely one of them for me. I was just like, the film was already losing me before that, and then it started doing that shit, and I was like, oh my, really? We had to establish the fact that some of the rebels were like, no, we don't want to do this mission. It's too dangerous. Well, what if they're wrong and all of that shit? Who fucking gives a shit? And ultimately, at the end of the day, really, that kind of sums up the story. Who gives a shit? Who gives a flying fuck? We know that they got the Death Star plans, and you don't even have a surviving hero to, go on and continue adventures and, maybe have a role in the new Star Wars film, like Episode 8. No, we don't even have that. Because everyone fucking dies. Like it's a fucking found footage horror film. And I understand it's war. I understand that. The stakes are high. They were essentially on a suicide mission to begin with. But that doesn't mean that everyone had to die. At least not in my opinion anyway. And regardless, it doesn't fucking matter what their sacrifice was. Because Star Wars The Force Awakens undoes all of that. Because 30 years later, after the rebels supposedly defeat the Empire at the end of Return of the Jedi, well, the Empire comes back and blows up the fucking Federation planet. Not Federation, I'm thinking Star Trek. Blows up the Rebel planet. It doesn't fucking matter anyway. At least you could have one of them survive so they could, I don't know, carry on their legacy and maybe have some kids or something and experience the time when the rebels did win. But no, they all fucking die. So they don't even let them get any of these characters get to, live their lives and get to experience what it's like to be free and not under the control of the Empire. Couldn't even have Jin live. I mean, I was surprised. I was like, you really couldn't even have her survive? I mean, not really wouldn't made much of a difference because the character still sucks. And I don't know if it's Felicity Jones who can't act, or it's just the script, or it's a combination of both. She's probably one of the most bland characters I think I've probably ever seen in a film. She's so bland. To the point where I'm like, you know what? I actually would have preferred if you added in those lines that people were criticizing, including I was even criticizing those lines like, what do? You're a rebel. I'm a rebel. I rebel. I'd actually take those. I take those lines over this just completely nothing character. Might as well just be fucking air. So, yeah. Oh man, there's just so many. So the characters are cardboard cutouts. The story isn't interesting in the slightest. The pacing is slow as fucking shit. Like I said, it's as slow as an Imperial Walker walking through quicksand. And those are the main problems. The film cannot recover from those problems. It's got these big grand aspirations, but it chokes to death on them. Because it doesn't bother to write a good story. It doesn't bother to create characters that are worth watching. It doesn't bother to do any of that. And like it thinks, oh, we have this interesting idea, and we have these grand visuals, and that's enough. And we have CGI Moff Tarkin, and we have a CGI Princess Leia. And that's enough. It isn't. It isn't enough. I'm sorry. You needed more. Because this isn't enough. This shit doesn't cut it. This shit more likely this shit cuts the cheese. Or cuts the shit. So, yeah. I do not really know what else to say about the film. I know it's a long-ass video, but I had a lot to say. I had a lot to say about this film and to get off my chest. And I guess it was a rate out of 5 stars. I would give the film 2 out of 5. To me, it's a notch below average. It could have been an average time waster if it just had better pacing. If it wasn't 2.5 hours. They don't even get to the final battle or getting the Death Star plans until the last 20-30 minutes of the film. Everything else before that is just filler. Should not have taken as long as it did to establish these new characters or to get them meeting up with each other and teaming up and doing stuff. It should not have taken that long. This film should have been like an hour and a half. It should have been fast and furious and fun. It should have been like Guardians of the Galaxy or like a Top Gun, but with X-Wing pilots, or not really X-Wing pilots, but a Top Gun with these type of fun, characters who go in and go on a mission to rebel and become rogues and make a name for themselves and do their part to save the galaxy. But no, it's just, we have this just fucking boring, just not very fun film. And a very routine story. And it's just a bore. It's Star Wars. It's a total Star Wars story. It's more than likely going to make you yawn instead of yell in excitement. Because what is there to be excited for? Jin? Cassian? The wannabe C-3PO robot? The villains are the best things about the best characters in the film. I mean, if Vader just went in and fucked everybody up at the end and just cleaned house, the movie probably be a time waster for me just for that. Nope. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I know I said that second time I said that, but yeah, Star Wars, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, is a perfect example of the importance of a story and the importance of likable and charismatic and engaging characters. You can have all the other aspects of the film production on point, right, but if you don't have those key important facets, everything just comes tumbling down, falls apart. So anyway, yeah, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.